Hi, and welcome to The Deep End, honest talk from the edge of what we know. I'm Kelley Scott, Executive Director at Clare House, and each episode we dive into real conversations about dying, living, caregiving, and everything in between. Today, we're exploring a topic that touches so many families, yet often clouded by myths, fears, and uncertainty. We're going to talk about hospice care. Joining me is Amy Bailey, an experienced hospice nurse who has walked alongside countless patients and families in their final months and days. Amy, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So excited that you're here. We've known each other for a long time. How long do you think that's been?
So I think this is my 20th year doing hospice. But at the old house, I think I just attended, I was a runner, I was on call. And
The
so
old house being the original Clare House
apartments,
location. Yes.
So that was my first experience with Clare House and this magical place. And so I kind of just stalked you ever since. So
Well, I think a lot of times that you are the kind of friend that I would want beside me in a bar fight, but I also want you taking care of me when it's my turn to die. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to hospice.
So I was a tech at St. Francis for a lot of years and went to LPN school and just automatically went back to hospital. And then I was a single mother, and so I was raising my kiddo. And so I went to days. I was always on nights. And I worked with this girl. I was working in the recovery room and she said, there's this great place that I think would be good for you. And told me the name of this hospice. And um, she said they have shifts that work well for like working parents. And so just as it would be, like the very next week, they had a job opening. And so I applied and then I interviewed, and they were very thorough. We had like 5 interviews. And so I really got into hospice out of necessity, I would say. I have always been pretty scrappy as far as protecting my patients, even in all of my jobs. But I was doing on-call, and so I was like 4 p.m. Friday night to 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and then 8 a.m. Sunday morning to 8 a.m. Monday morning. And so then I was off all week with my son. And so, but I knew I had one weekend, and then the very next weekend, I was still on orientation, like when I actually was there. And I was like, this is what I was supposed to do with my life. Like I just automatically, it's very rare, I think, that you have those epiphanies, especially at like 2 o'clock in the morning while attending to death. But I knew that was what I was supposed to do. And I really have not ever regretted that at all. I still, it's odd, but I still love it like I loved it.
Not odd to me, not at all. You said the word scrappy, and I think that anybody that knows you probably understands that is one of your biggest attributes. And what that leads to is that you're a fantastic patient advocate.
Thank you.
I know that that's one of the qualities that a lot of other people see. And you are very well known in this community because you've been in hospice care, moving around to different facilities, to different organizations for 20 years. So I know personally you have a really great reputation. And part of your empathy and your sensitivity and your advocacy makes you a great hospice nurse, but you're also just a really joyful person, and you seem to live really fully. Um, how does that play into what some might consider really sad work?
I think it's a mix. So for me, it's going to sound bizarre, but it's not sad. And not to say that there aren't sad moments, because there are, just suffering in general, and or just being empathetic and feeling a family's pain or loss, Um, but I think what keeps me every day not, you know, laying on a couch and sucking my thumb and rocking is that this is the one job you really have the opportunity to really stick up for people. They can do things the way they want to do them. It's not about us. It's not about us. It's not about the hospital. It's not about a facility. It's about that person that has that diagnosis and about their family and how they want things to go. And so I always tell people, I mean, you're driving, we're just like a map, and so it's not cookie cutter. You can totally make it how they need it, and they tell you. And if they aren't able to tell you, their family knows them well enough too. And if no one is there, then you know what you would want, and you can fight for them that way.
And in a life situation where you feel like every day you lose more control,
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine what a gift that is to an individual or a family to hear that from you.
I literally tell patients and families, this is the one time in your healthcare journey that you have complete autonomy. You want to take that cholesterol medicine? Okay. You tired of your insulin? All right. You want to keep taking vitamins? Sure, take them. It's really about them. And so, you're so used to people saying, no, can't do that, can't do that.
Right.
And this, you're just like, all right, because everything's going to work out just the way it should. It's just when we start twisting and trying to make it fit our mold that it gets kind of screwy.
Yeah. Well, talk just a little bit about how you practice right now, what the setting is that you are functioning in, where you have this kind of contact with patients and families.
So when I describe it to like lay people, I'm kind of the onboarder, I guess, I do kind of the onboarding. So um, I'm mostly function as a hospital liaison. I have a few physicians that I've known over the years that I still work with, and just personal like friends and things like that that I deal with. But if you're in the hospital and someone tells you, or your family member, that it's time for hospice, I'm one of the people that come and talk to you.
So you come to the room in the
Mhm.
hospital, and how do you introduce yourself? How do you start that hard conversation?
Honestly, I just cannot imagine having a Nurse Ratchet come in, like in that situation. And I do think that there is that little bit of expectation that we're going to be doom, gloom, and despair. And so I just really try to do the opposite of that. And I just introduce myself, and I say, and then I always say, like, are you aware that I was coming?
Good
Because
question.
I have 100% had people go, who? What? And so I like to just kind of knock that out. And so that way, if they say no, I just say, I'll be right back and then go. But, and then they lead. Um, and there's some people you can tell it's more of a serious conversation, and there's some people that thrive for a little bit of lightheartedness, and there's some people that are just hilarious. And I just roll with the punches, and I just whatever they need, that's what I'm going to be for them. And I feel all those things, so it's true. It's not, I'm not like, being like an actress.
No,
I'm
you are a very genuine
Yeah,
person.
I'm very sincere, but I'm also, I mean, I make jokes and I'm a Gemini, but I mean, I've had I've had a pretty fun life, and I've gone through a lot of stuff that's not so great and stuff that's spectacular. And so I just really am a very non-judgmental person, and I just meet people where they're at, and I felt all those emotions before, and so I'll fill in with them if however they need.
And I think that's key for families as well, to feel like they can even start that conversation, is to be dealing with somebody that they sense some real authenticity, that this is a real person and she has real emotions, and there's just a genuine expression of empathy.
Thank you.
So many people hear hospice and immediately have fear,
Right.
when in reality it's the most supportive, compassionate service a family might be able to get. And that's what we want to talk about today, is what contributes to those fears and what is the reality that can balance that out. So let's start with one of the biggest things I think that people say, and is that hospice means you're giving up.
Hmm.
So what would you say to that? And when somebody says we're not ready to give up, what might your response be,
You're not giving up,
and why?
because you're actually taking control of how you want to live the rest of your life. Like, nothing's going to change that diagnosis. Nothing. And I mean, you can do it all different ways. Like, and people do, as you see, as I see, there's people that go aggressive right up until they pass away, and there's people that take that prognosis they've been given and live their life, how they kind of wish they had lived it all their years. Um, and so I say it's not giving up because you do have some control over it. We don't ever expect you to give up hope. I mean, can you imagine if we were just complete hope crushers?
No.
And so, I mean, I always say, I mean, if a miracle happens and things change, we will throw you a huge party and I will do the decorations and the food. And so we will absolutely celebrate you. But if not, you have this wonderful benefit that you're not going to pay any money for. And it's not only going to support you, but it's going to support your family. And if you do pass, it's going to continue to support your family. And how can you? It's free. It's free 99, as my mother would say. And so, how could you not want that extra help? Because you're not going to get that help anywhere else. You just won't. It's just not the way our system is made.
Right. Right. So, for people that may really be new to end of life care or hospice care, what's your elevator pitch? How would you define hospice? What is it? What is it in a way that's quick and easy to understand?
I just say the least threatening way I can think to say it, which is literally a hospice order states that if your disease process follows its natural course, it could be terminal in 6 months. You know, and so we're just looking at that. And what I say is that you're just reshifting and looking at a different goal here. And so the goal is not death at all. The goal is life. It's just how do you want to live that part of your life? Um, and so I look at it, I think my elevator talk would be that you can have some control over the way that you want to spend your life. I always tell people, we want you to have the best day to day that you can ever have. And let's not worry about yesterday, let's not worry about tomorrow. Let's just focus on today. Focus on this hour if you need to, but today you're going to feel the best that you can feel. And if you don't, we're going to help you to change that. And whether that be, and that's where hospice is so lovely too, is you have interdisciplinary because people have all sorts of needs. There's people that it's not just pain medicine, it's socialization, it's love, it's people have psychosocial stuff they bring. You have a social worker. There's some people that have some spiritual crises, and then you have a chaplain. Um, we have volunteers that are friendly visitors that maybe people are just lonely, and so all of those things, I guess that's my elevator talk is just how many good things there are. And focus is not really on the death aspect of it. I know it sounds.
Well, and I think it's really helpful to think of it in terms of just focusing on today because most of us don't live that way.
Oh, yeah.
We're either buried in all the mess and heartache and regrets of the past, or we're worrying and riddled with anxiety about what's coming next week or next month or next year. And so to somehow give yourself permission to just be in the moment and live in the moment, it can be a huge challenge, but also, man, what a gift.
It really is. And I think that I don't expect people to be like excited about it at all. But as they continue with hospice, if that's what they choose to do, as they continue, they do feel some of that relief and some of that freedom and some of that ability to be where they want to be and do what they want to do. Because like hospice, you also don't have to sit at home if you don't want. I mean, if you want to go visit your children in Montana, we will find a hospice there and do a traveling contract with them. And so in case you get in a pickle, you'll have somebody that can help you where you are. And then you can come back to us and we'll love you up and hear all about it, And so,
And I'll send you pictures of all the fish I caught.
and the yurts. So, but I mean, I think that's a common misconception is that you're just stuck in a room in a hospital bed with morphine and that's it, and that's really live your life
What about for people that think that it's only for the last days? Hospice is just for the very end. Do you hear that?
all the time.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing I say once I get over the introduction is, do they have any experience with hospice? Have they ever had that exposure before? Because there are people that have not, maybe have had different experiences or their sister's brother's cousin has had something in a different state or whatever, and you can kind of address some issues before you ever get there, because I do think a lot of times it's for the last, people think it's for like the last days. And I think that's twofold. I think some of it is that we think, and I'm including me and like my family and whoever in this too, you think that if I accept hospice, then I'm just accepting death. And so you put it off as long as you can because you understand what a good benefit it is. And then also is very well, you could write a book, I'm sure, on how late people get referred to hospice. And I do also think that people don't know that they can be at home and be like, this is where we are, and do some research, and call a hospice, and they can do all the work for you. You don't, sometimes better than, yeah, you see your PCP once a year, or something like that. You just never know. And so um, I think that we're so much better when we can start, when we're allowed to start, like when you actually meet hospice criteria. We're wonderful in the last days, absolutely, but why wouldn't you want somebody to build a trusting relationship with? So when those
Over
things,
weeks or months.
yes, so then when these things do happen, these are people you trust. These are people you know, and they know you. And so it's more comforting to have that relationship. And also just from a, nursing standpoint or a medical standpoint, we are much better equipped to kind of anticipate needs because we know you and notice changes, and that only helps in your care.
And knowing that somebody can enroll in hospice 6 months before the end of life, and granted, none of us have a crystal ball, and we don't know exactly when that is, so that prognosis of when you fall in that time frame might be challenging for providers sometimes. Hospice nurses are generally pretty good at it when they've been working with that for a long time. But to be able to get all the benefits of that care, the interdisciplinary team, the symptom management, the teaching, the education about the process and what it looks like as death draws near, and the support from the social worker and the chaplain. But more than anything, I think in my own personal life and in what I've seen for decades now is the relationship that people build with their nurses or their aides, the people that are laying hands on them and are providing the care. And the bond can be really deep.
I think going back to like your first question about the sadness, aspect of it, I do think there has to be a balance. I think you have to have good boundaries, but you can't have too big of a wall,
Right.
or you're not sincere, and you're really not doing anybody any favors if you're just straight up and down and don't soften a little. But you also can't be completely without, or it's going to be like a family member dying every day. And so I think that it is a balancing act, but in that, because we are human and we're all fallible, we have those ones that sneak in and get you. But that's your why.
Right.
That's your reminder of what you're doing and why. And so I appreciate that when I get people, and I could name every one of them over, the whole time I've been doing this, the ones that have gotten me.
It's a huge privilege, and I tell our staff here on a regular basis that families tell their death story over and over. I mean, that's part of grief is that you retell the story, and sometimes you start way back at the beginning of the diagnosis, and you go through every step up until the moment of death or until the body was taken away or even more, and they remember all of that, and they tell that story, and they retell it, and they retell it, and we as hospice nurses have the unbelievable privilege of becoming a part of that story in somebody's memory that may go on for decades.
Right.
I mean, how special is that?
I mean, it's a huge honor. I mean, I think some of my, and I'm sure you're that way too, some of my best memories of my job, and I mean, how unique and wonderful this is, that are at 3 o'clock in the morning waiting for a funeral home and sitting there while, their wife is having coffee and we're sitting at the kitchen table and they're just telling the story, about how they met or how long they've been married. And usually there's laughter involved, and you feel like you are personally in their life at that point. And I just think those are so precious, those little moments that you get. We don't get that in our everyday life a lot. And I'm just lucky enough to get it at work.
And it's filled with meaning. I think that's the thing that just overwhelms me sometimes is the significance of the moment, and that we see it, we appreciate it, we value it. And to know that a family's gonna carry that forward with hopefully equal, understanding of how important that moment is, how significant and sacred that time is.
I was at having brunch one morning with some friends, and um, this out of nowhere, this woman just came up, and I didn't see her at first, and she just hugged me so tight. And she was like, I knew that was you. I heard your voice, which, you know, and she just hugged me. And I took care of her mother. And I had taken care of her mother like 2 years before that. And it was actually a hospitalized patient where we kept him in the hospital when they passed away. Back then, you did that a little bit more than you do it now. And, um, and so I think it doesn't have to, sometimes it can just be that one moment. And if you have to be completely present.
Yeah.
That's like in our day and age, we're just on sale, on doing this, multitasking, with the news going and driving, and I've got to get here and there. But when you are with a patient and their family, you're just absolutely there.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you probably need to find another job.
Right.
But,
Because they're gonna sense it.
well, yeah. And you're not doing them any favors. So at that point.
You mentioned the word suffer a
Mhm.
little bit ago. A lot of people have a fear that hospice means more suffering because you stop treatment. I have a really strong opinion about that statement because sometimes I think it's the treatment that can cause more
Well, I was
suffering.
right with you. So.
How do you respond to that?
Woosah. I think I'm like you. I have very strong feelings about that as well. And I think it's because we've taken care of people that actually are suffering secondary to treatment that probably should have been, somebody should have been responsible, just not the patient or their family.
Just to initiate a conversation.
Absolutely.
What are we
But
doing?
people don't want to talk about death.
Why are we still, what are our goals here?
Right.
What are we hoping
Goals
for?
of care is a wonderful conversation to have, but you just have to be willing. And if you don't, if you're not comfortable with that, get somebody that is. Even if I always tell people, I'm happy to come talk to anybody. There's no pressure. They don't have to come on hospice. I mean, if you just want me to explain what we do, I'm all day. Call me. I'll come, and then I'll leave. I've done that before, and someone's called me 6 months later. Or whatever the case may be, because I think we just have to wrap our heads around it. But I don't think you're going to have more suffering if you stop treatment, because at the point that you're eligible for hospice, what is that doing for you at this point?
The treatment.
Yeah, what is it doing? You can radiate yourself. I mean, we've all had people that have had kind of leathery lungs and had a complicated death secondary to a lot of radiation. There's people that literally pass away from chemo. I mean, it's kind of the benefit versus burden, and sometimes you don't know that it's going to be that way, but sometimes they do know. Not so. I think it's a very personal decision, but you, at the point that you're eligible for hospice, truthfully, is it going to give you days, or is it just going to give you somewhat of control? And what are those days going to look like?
Do you think in your practice with visiting hospital patients, do you think that, what would you say, the majority or the minority of them have been given good information about what to expect so that they can make a good decision for their own values? Like this goals of care conversation that you mentioned. Are those happening soon enough?
No, I think, and you'll hear all different ways of people, people in healthcare that say why this doesn't happen, and sometimes even lay people say the same thing. is that, people be like, "Oh, it's just about money." It's really not. I really and may call me naive, and I'm really not that naive, but that I don't think that that's what it's about. I think what it's about is that healthcare doesn't wanna let people down, and they feel like a failure if this person now they may have gone in and that person already had been diagnosed with cancer, and they already had bone mets, and they already had all these things, but they feel wrong if they don't keep offering
Mhm.
something, and in conversations I've had with physicians, a lot of them do feel that way, that they failed the person when they need hospice. And to me personally, I feel like they fail when they don't mention it when they're
Mhm.
eligible. Because the patient or the family, they don't know that they have these choices.
Right.
They're not even stop to think about it. You're just pressing forward and going. And then if you take time and you just breathe and have this conversation, this is what this looks like if we keep going here. This is what this looks like if we keep going here. And so, I mean, me personally, and it's probably from doing this job, I'd like to think that I thought this way even before then. I think in conversations that I've had, remember I do, but I would rather have quality to those days. I would rather not be throwing up or not be bedbound, for 6 months just to find out that that doesn't do any good,
Yeah.
or that I'm worse, you know?
And I along with that, not letting people down, I hear an argument where people say, "Well, I'm not gonna play God," as if not offering an option to curative or aggressive or life-prolonging treatment is somehow this authoritarian approach that you've decided not to offer it, and somehow that puts you in this godlike position. But in my mind, you're also playing God if you're prolonging life with artificial treatments and making a decision to not give someone a choice about whether or not they would take. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see that from both sides.
Oh, totally.
The playing God argument cuts both ways.
But they don't see that, you know? But I always say that we're made perfectly. We are. No matter what your belief system is, we are made perfectly. When it is our time, that's why we don't hunger anymore. We don't have thirst.
The body knows how to shut itself
It does.
down if we allow it to operate on its timeline.
That dehydration.
Yeah.
I mean, I just explain it all to people, I explained it today at a, visit with a family. That dehydration is very beneficial to what his body is trying to do,
Right.
and if you go against that, you're gonna get wet secretions, you're gonna get symptoms, you're gonna have extra fluid. I mean, I'm pretty blunt about because it's awful to see, and so, I just always say that we're made perfectly, it's just that when we try to change that. Not saying that you can't get a diagnosis and get treatment because 100% you can, but at that point where that treatment is it prolonging or is it not?
Wait,
Okay.
wait, wait. Are you saying that we won't all live forever?
I know it's crazy. Nuts. Yeah.
Inevitably, it's gonna come
Yes.
at some point.
Mhm.
And, um, yeah.
I think Connor and they're horrified that I have a book that said, "I'm dead, now what?" Like, that's like what
Your
I
husband and son don't like seeing that on your shelf, huh?
they're like, "Oh my gosh," but that is it, and you just kinda have your little or I call it, I say, "Whatever happens, if this happens to me, do not do this. Don't."
Yeah,
Because we have to learn from what we see every day, and that's part of teaching as well, I feel like,
yeah,
too.
yeah. What about control issues? People worry that if they choose hospice, it's gonna wrest control away from them or from their families.
And the only time they're gonna have control.
Yeah, but you're just gonna kill me with the morphine.
They always say that.
I know.
You know
And why would hospice do that? You just have less patient days you could bill for.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that if you wanna talk
Definitely not job
if you want to
security.
accuse it of being all about the money, that seems like a really bad business.
Very bad business plan. Um, you know, I address that a lot because it may not be my patient or their immediate family, but there always seems to be, like we talk about all the time, the cousin from California that comes in, that's not, we always say California, sorry,
Yeah.
the California people, but
Unfortunately, yeah.
you know, they come in, they've not been involved in the care, and they're like, do everything. And it just puts a pickle. Everybody's in a pickle. And then the people that have been so sure about what they're doing, they start feeling guilty. Like, oh my gosh, did I miss that? Am I wrong? And you're like, no, you're not wrong. And so the control is actually in this fear or person that comes along that isn't of the same mindset and hasn't seen the suffering and hasn't seen everything that the family has seen in patient. Um, this is the only time, I mean, I'll say it again, it's the only time you're going to have autonomy. You don't have to take the morphine if if you're not in pain. But if you're in pain, like a lot of times, I mean, if you start out when you're actually appropriate for hospice, you know, you don't just always just start off with just that. I mean, there's a lot of times you're taking your pain pills. We always put a comfort kit in there because what if 2 o'clock in the morning you get in a crisis? You don't want to wait for a pharmacy, you know. That's why I'm an overthinker about oxygen. What if, you know, like you need it at 2 in the morning? Do we want to wait for that, or do we want to just have it there just in case, just as needed? And so I try to be extremely proactive, and that's what I explained to them. We're just being proactive. Now, when it's time, are we going to talk to you? Yes, yes. Um, I would hope by that point there would be some type of relationship where they would understand that. Now, I have that conversation a lot in the hospital, getting people out, because that's one of the things that's prescribed, you know, typically right when they leave the hospital. If
Is
they're not,
oxygen?
is morphine,
Morphine.
oxygen, but morphine mostly. And people are like, oh my gosh, do we need to do that? But really, 5 milligrams of sublingual morphine is equal to a Norco. So do you want to try to take a bunch of pills and Tylenol, or do you want to just take this little tiny 0.25 milliliters?
And I
of
think that's what people don't
liquid?
understand is if you look at what we call equianalgesic dosing, we're equating it to something that is familiar to us. And we start low and we go slow, and it's not like it in itself, just because it's morphine, is going to be administered at a lethal dose. It's the gold standard in pain management in hospice care. You use it just like you would a couple of Lortabs or a couple of Norcos or whatever that is. It's the best thing to use for a lot of reasons that are, you know, it's
And not
easy.
just pain.
Right. Helps with shortness of breath.
Yeah.
It's going to help decrease the workload on your heart. It's
Right.
just going to make everything a little bit easier, but it's not in doses that are potentially lethal to people.
No. And I think if they only knew how much, like, especially when we first start, you know, like when you first start in a hospice job or, you know, your first hospital job, you know, and everything, and you start giving doses like that for somebody that's critically ill, you know, that's not gonna, they're not gonna live, then you know, how much we internalize, you know, it took me a long time, you know, long, but, you know, it took me a little bit to realize that I'm not causing that, you know, like that this is what's happening, but I don't want people to suffer. So I'm not making that go faster for them, nor am I slowing it down.
Neither hastening or prolonging.
Yes, that is my job.
But the other reality is that I think families have to accept, individuals have to accept, there will always be a last dose
Yes.
of medicine.
Yeah. And
But that doesn't mean somebody caused it. There will just always be a last dose.
oh yeah, I've printed that off Hospice and Palliative Nurses Association website more than once, you know, because it is, it's, I would hate for a family member to feel like that they caused that.
Sure.
Because it was already happening.
Right.
And so I think it's really important to start educating from the minute you meet them and then continually educate. I tell
Right.
people, we are not about blindsiding you. We spill our guts. We do not keep secrets. So if I see something, I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing. This is not a dictatorship. This is a relationship.
And that is one of the huge benefits in general, is that you have an experienced guide on this journey. And if you don't know what it means that your loved one is sleeping 18 hours a day, you don't know what it means that they aren't interested in food or fluids anymore. You don't know what it means that emotionally they've withdrawn from you and they're not paying any attention to what's going on with the kids or daily life or what's broken in the house. And yet for us, that's all normal. That's the work of the dying person. That's the work that they and their bodies are doing to prepare to leave.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want somebody that understood that walking with you?
I would. I mean, I for sure would.
What else makes people afraid?
Just the unknown, I think. And I think a lot of times I have a lot of conversations with people, um, like that they bring up about what's next, like after somebody dies, and I think that's a big fear. I mean, but in being so honored to be present at, I don't even know how many deaths, um, I know that it's not a bad thing what happens after. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, there's a reason why someone that's 102 is talking to her mother. There's a reason why, makes me emotional, but there's a reason why there's people that you can keep a vigil and then they leave. I always say, tell them what you're doing because they make a choice. They know they cannot articulate it and they may not be on that, but deep down spiritually, there's a choice they're making. They're waiting on somebody. They don't want you to witness it, you know? I mean, just for my mother's sake, I'll say, you know, she lost her mom young, and her my grandfather was really lucky to live as long as he did. I mean, he lived a long time, but I always said he didn't want you to see. You already had to see your mom. Why would he protected you his whole life? Like why, So I think I always am really, really careful to always say, however it happens is how it's supposed to happen. We just don't know the reasoning behind it. It'll all make sense at some point or it won't. But it's happening the way it's supposed to happen. And they're not in fear. It's us as human beings that we're not going to see him again. And I always say like selfishly that I mourn my grandfather, and my grandmother because they're probably together right now,
Yeah.
and just from what I've seen, I'll guarantee you they are.
It's just so hard when you love someone to know that they're going somewhere you can't go with them.
Oh yeah.
You can't even walk them there to make sure they're okay and then come back. You just can't go.
Mhm.
And I know when my dad died, I really struggled with
Mhm.
that I could get him just so far,
Mhm.
and then I had to stop because he had to do the rest of it on his own, and that was really hard. It was really hard when they drove away with his
Oh
body
yeah.
in the
I can
van
imagine.
because he
Yeah.
was all by himself and we
Yeah.
weren't with him, and I know it was just like a knife in the heart for my mom as well because you cannot where they're going, you cannot go, and it's so difficult.
Yeah. It is. I'm glad that I don't know that feeling right now, and so I'm not gonna act like I do. Um, but I understand what that must feel like. I and I, I think about my poor mother-in-law, and her grief and things like that. And I wish that I could give some comfort in the fact that I promise you're gonna see him again. There's like I said, there's a reason people talk to people that haven't been there for a million years.
Yeah.
So
Can we talk about Barrett?
yeah, we can talk about him.
So all these years you've been a hospice nurse and you've been coming to Claire House and we've been working together and you experienced a family experiences having a loved one here.
Yeah.
What was it like being on the other side of the bed?
So just for just a little background, it's like it was absolutely happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Hmm.
You know, my uncle, I got here, he was at St. John, and he was, you know, in the last part of his life, and we just happened to get a bed at Clare House, and he was in room 4, and Barrett was in room 10, and he had sent me a message a couple weeks before that that just said, um, "I love you, I'll always love you. Make sure Connor knows I love him." And then it was just gone, but he had brain cancer, and so sometimes he would send messages and then just disappear, and you think, "Oh, tumor's growing,"
Yeah.
you know? And so that's the way it would go, and I just was making coffee. I'll never forget, I was making coffee in the little alcove, and, I was pouring a cup of coffee, and I was gonna dip a pink swab in the coffee for my Uncle Steve because he loved coffee like I did, and, um, or do, and, I see somebody standing behind me, and I don't know how long I was standing there because I was thinking to myself, I was just in a zone. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." I turned around, Bear's dad. So my whole family went down there. My uncle was here 4 hours.
Wow.
He was just waiting to get out of the hospital, you know, he was not a hospital person. And he was here 4 hours, but in that and Jimmy Stout was on his way out. And so that was meant to be. So, I can't remember what day of the week that was, but that Monday, my sister and I came by and we saw him, and he was just uncomfortable and everything. So I called Jimmy and I said, "You want me to stay with Barrett tonight?" And he said, "Yeah, I know, you just have to understand, Barrett and I had a wonderful relationship, and twice a wonderful relationship." And so I just never left. You know, I would go, I did this job. I still did this job I do now. I was working for a hospice that wasn't based in Tulsa. So I officed from home. So I officed from Clare House, room 10. And if I needed to go see a family, I would go see a family. And then I would come back and do everything I needed to do. And so I stayed here every night, and I had wonderful neighbors. I had a cat, and my neighbor, Lisa, she just loved my cat. So she helped me where I could be with him.
And you just put everything else on hold in the meantime,
I did. And
because that's what you do.
that is what you do. And I'll never forget Dr. Guerin coming and telling me, I mean, I've been doing this a long time at that point, you know, certified hospice and palliative nurse. You know, I'd worked at Clare House on Sundays, you know, and everything. And he sat down next to me and he said, you know, this was as Barrett was transitioning to, you know, being close to actively dying. And he said, "You know, he's dying, right?" And that sounds,
Duh.
yeah, but I needed
Yeah.
that. Um,
Need to hear it out
I
loud.
needed that, and I implicitly trusted him, and he needed to know, you know, we can get in that caregiver role where ti or the daylight donuts guy, time to get up and make the donuts, you know, just over and over again, and not see what's happening because you've been there the whole time, so it's just like little things, little things, little things, you know, and then all of a sudden, boom. But really, it's been happening, you've just been kind of in your own little world, and so I'll just never forget when he told me that. It was, actually a gift that he gave me, just like sweet Tammy telling me that, you know, every time she went in to turn him in the middle of the night, I'd always leave and go, you know, get a cup of coffee or do whatever. And she would, you know, midnight to 8. And she would say, "He asks where you are every time you walk out. So I'm just letting you know in case he decides to go when you're not in there." And I just said, "Thank you." But he went with me in there, you know, so
Yeah.
I was lucky in that, you know, felt very honored for that. And Claire House took wonderful care of me. So, and
Good.
it's him. But I am very grateful that I had that experience. I think it made me um, a better hospice nurse and a better advocate.
Amy, what do you hope families carry away from that experience of walking with somebody, saying goodbye, and then letting go, and going back out and picking up their lives again?
Oof. You know, I hope that they really take away the fact that they're not alone. I hope that they continue to feel that like little cradle of love that
Mhm.
they get from hospice, you know.
Mhm.
Because I always feel like we're just kind of holding them. They're doing everything. I mean, it'd be lovely to say that we're there 24 hours a day, but that's just not the way the hospice benefit is set up. And it's literally called intermittent care. And as you well know, because you've got Clare House, it's a lot for families 23 hours a day to do that, and they kind of forget how to be the wife and the daughter. And so that's why lovely places like this exist so they can rest and be that person. But I hope that they take away the fact that they were never truly alone and that they're still not. Because even if your loved one died, 5 years ago, you can still call that hospice, and they'll still love you up, you know. I understand. I think a lot of times people think it's a burden on their kids or on their sisters or friends to help them with their grief. And so sometimes it's nice to have someone that's just on the outs to be able to do that. But I hope they realize that they always have support if they want it. I don't care if it's been 10 years. There's not a hospice, at least in Tulsa, that you would call that would just be like, what?
Yeah.
You would at least be able to talk to somebody or get some resources or something like that. So
There's some really heavy, poignant, challenging moments, I'm sure, in every day. But what gives you joy? What makes Amy happy? What
work, Amy?
both work Amy and regular Amy?
Work, Amy, it makes me happy to help. And it makes me happy to make sure that people feel supported and that what they want, they know I got you. I have got you. You tell me what you want. If I can't do it, I'll find somebody that can. And they know I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like no matter what, I will. And I have big shoulders, and I'm happy to go talk to somebody for you. I'm happy to talk to your brother. I'm happy to, talk to a physician if you're too scared. I'll do whatever because you're mine, and I'm going to help take care of you. And so I want to lay my head down at night. And I do also have a little bit of type A control about symptom management and making sure everything's nice when they go home. So they feel prepared, they feel educated, and then everything they need is at their fingertips. I feel very accountable to their journey, at least the beginning of it, and sometimes longer if I'm lucky. And it sounds weird to like want that, but I want that. I don't want to say, oh, that's so and so's problem. I got you, and that gives me a lot of joy. And someone looking at me and just I can feel that they feel better that I was there.
Yeah.
I don't. It's a healthy way to express my codependency, I'm sure. So, and then Amy is family. I mean, family and friends and OU.
Boomer Sooner.
Yes. And we did not cheat. And so,
And
I,
babies.
and
Life.
ladies, yeah, life in general. I think COVID just made everything so weird, and so I feel like we're finally just kind of coming out of that cocoon a little. I mean, things are still weird, but as we're sitting here and the sun's coming in and everything, I think it's starting to feel like you can breathe again, and I'm hoping healthcare, if it starts feeling like that as well, that we can really take good care of some people.
Well, and I hope that you sharing so much of your heart and who you are and why you do this work will help people realize that, yes, you're very special, but there are a lot of really special hospice nurses
Oh
out
yeah,
there. And man, find yourself a hospice nurse like Amy Bailey to walk this journey with you because that support is there and it can make all the difference in the world for the person who's dying and for the family that's saying goodbye and for those who have to go on when it's all over.
I think what they don't realize is that they're a gift to us as well.
Mhm.
Like they think that, oh, I've done what I've worn you out, or I've been a burden, or thank you, no, thank you. Because you're a gift to me, because it teaches me how to live my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that way too. And I also know that you're a gift to me.
You're a gift to me as well. I love you.
I love you too. And I thank you for being with me and having this conversation. If you've ever wondered what hospice might be like and if it's right for your family, I hope this conversation helps you see that it's not giving up. It's choosing care and comfort and dignity. Please, if you like this podcast, if you like listening to it, leave a review, but most importantly, share this information with someone in your life who might need us and help us normalize talking about the hard things with facts, with empathy, with love, with laughter. Thank you for being here, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you for wading into the deep end with us for these honest conversations about what it means to live and die well.